Hey, it's Jeff Hyman, startup therapist, where we focus on the people part of startups. And we have a fantastic guest. Hey, Katy Lynch.
Hello.
How are you, Katy?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Very well. Katy, you're the CEO of TechWeek, based here in Chicago. And I guess you guys now do work in a bunch of cities, both domestically and internationally. And there's two main things we're going to talk about today, and then I'll tee it up by introducing you. The first bit we're going to talk about is social media, and kind of a great primer for entrepreneurs and founders, since you've run one of Chicago's biggest social media firms. And then we'll spend time talking about anxiety, depression, stress amongst entrepreneurs. I know that's something you're very passionate about, and we'll spend the other half of the time on that. Does that sound okay?
That's perfect.
Good. So just as means of introduction, Katy, you started one of the coolest and most significant social media firms based in Chicago. Did that for about 5 years. I know it was successfully acquired, and now you're leading TechWeek. Why don't you give maybe just a 30-second introduction on what SocialKaty was all about, and then TechWeek.
Yeah, so SocialKaty was a full-service social media marketing agency based in downtown Chicago. So we helped initially startups and small businesses kind of get their footing on social, right, and help them with their branding there. And then due to word of mouth and referrals and just growing the business, we ended up working with a lot of larger companies as well, like AAA and Firestone Tires, which was phenomenal. And so now you're absolutely correct. I sold that company last year to a company called Manifest. And now I'm the CEO of TechWeek, which honestly makes a lot of sense, and it's the perfect role for me, just given my background
Right.
and my passion with the technology community.
It's just a great platform. TechWeek does events and series in a number of cities, and you were mentioning Havana, Cuba being one of them. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. And these events are throughout the year in these different cities, and so you're now running that organization, which is just a terrific group. So with that set up, what's that?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So you've got the perfect experience to talk with us, because you've been an entrepreneur, you run an organization for entrepreneurs, and you've worked with many entrepreneurs leading SocialKaty. Maybe that's a good place to start then, is kind of your experience in social media with regard to entrepreneurs and founders, the ones watching us today. What are some of the biggest mistakes that they make as they're starting to implement a social media program? What are some of the most common mistakes you saw?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistakes are too much self-promotion, right? I think that, entrepreneurs are very excited, passionate people, right? They're excited about their products and their services and what it is that they have to offer. And so what I've seen is, entrepreneurs going on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, you name it, and just being too self-promotional. I think that turns a lot of customers and a lot of clients off.
Yep.
I think on a similar vein, frequency, right? Some mistakes that I'm seeing are entrepreneurs maybe tweeting out far too many times a day, or posting, between 8 and 10 Facebook posts a day, which is really just the kind of the wrong strategy.
Got it. So
you really have to think about, what type of content do I really want to push out there, and push it out in a very timely fashion.
So if those are two of the more common mistakes, and I'm sure this answer will vary based on the type of product or service, but what are some things that entrepreneurs should be thinking about in terms of coming up with a content strategy that's not just about my product or service? Because you're right, that is self-promotional, and frankly, people don't care about my product or service, they care about their own problems. So how do I think about the developing content topics, and then what are the right frequency guidelines? Even if it varies, maybe just give us some ballparks.
Yeah, I think it's two things, right? It's talking, which is the creating and generating and pushing out the content piece. But then there's listening, and in many ways, listening is almost more valuable than posting content, right? And there's tools out there like Sprout Social and Topsy and Clout and Hootsuite and many others, where you can listen to what it is that your customers are actually saying across these different mediums.
Right.
Because I think that once you find out what your pain points of your customers are, you can then tailor your content to those questions.
So instead of sitting in a room and whiteboarding and brainstorming all kinds of topics, just finding out what people are already saying or talking about, maybe not just with my products, but maybe my competitors' products or
exactly
the segments, and I'll figure out very quickly what's on their mind, what they respond to, what they engage with, what they hate, what they love, and then develop content strategy around that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that is spot on. That is exactly what I'm saying.
Got it. What do you do if your product is a Kleenex? It's something that you literally can't talk about your product. No one's going to care. How do you kind of figure out as you listen to your customers? They're not talking about Kleenex. So where do I go from there if I'm in one of these very arcane kind of products or services that people buy and they need it, but they take it for granted?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a brilliant question. And I think those types of products, you kind of have to look at them as it's a lifestyle, right? It's like, think about all the different types of people that would use something like that product, and think about the types of lifestyles that those people lead, right? Whether they're busy dads, whether they're busy mums, they have families, what would be the different use cases for the product? And you're really tailoring your story around people's lifestyles. And at that point, it's less about the actual product itself.
So you come up with personas of these different types of users. Let's say in the case of Kleenex, it's busy moms who have kids and they need to think about preventing colds or whatever. The content strategy would go in that direction versus talking about the Kleenex.
Absolutely, yes.
Got it. At what point do I know? Well, let's come back to that in a sec. Frequency. You mentioned too many tweets, too many posts. I think you're right. On the margin, people err in that direction.
Yeah.
How much is overload? Or more importantly, because I know it varies by product, how do I know when I'm overloading customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really is a question of frequency across the different channels, right? And social media etiquette towards the different channels. So on Facebook, for example, typically you would see a brand only post between 1 or 2 times a day. And in order to get an audience to read those posts, the brand would be injecting money into advertising, right, to drive individuals and drive customers to those posts. Twitter is a slightly different beast because it's real-time information, and the average lifespan of a tweet is around 30 minutes or less.
Yeah.
So, for a company, you may want to post anywhere between 8 and 10 times a day.
Wow.
And that's really a culmination of original content and customer service, right? So mentioning or replying to people who are actually talking about your brand. Pinterest and Instagram, the visual storytelling platforms, are a slightly different beast. I would say, between 1 or 2 boards a week would suffice on Pinterest. And on Instagram, really anywhere between, 5 or 6 or 5 or 8 Instagram posts.
Per week? Per week.
Okay. Yeah.
What about LinkedIn? You didn't mention LinkedIn. Is that a medium that you found to be effective for driving social conversations?
Yes. And I would say it's far more valuable for businesses in the B2B space. I think that businesses that post blog posts there, right? And blog posts are great for thought leadership.
Yeah.
That's great for LinkedIn. I also think the influencer section is phenomenal as well. But I'd say that B2B companies get far more value out of it.
Got it. How do I know as an entrepreneur when it makes sense to bring in outside help or go to an outside social media firm, even hire just a contractor? This is the kind of thing where I can do it myself. The question is, can someone do it better? Can someone develop those creative angles, master the right frequency? Because you need to be always in front of this. And as an entrepreneur, you got a business to run, right? You're raising money, you're hiring people. So what are the telltale signs that I'm ready to go outside for help?
I mean, it's a few different things, right? I think if you have a business and you're just starting out and you have a very small budget, you can definitely manage social media yourself, right? I mean, there are tools out there. There are free tools out there, some paid like Sprout Social.
Yep.
that allow you to manage and measure how effective your social media strategy is. So if you want to go down that route, it's really a matter of how much time am I going to be devoting to my social media strategy?
Right.
And for a business owner, you may, with a small budget, you may only want to devote maybe 1 or 2 hours a day to your social media strategy because you're focusing on all other aspects of your business, right?
Sure. It could be a full-time job if you wanted it to be.
Absolutely. Now, as you begin to grow and as your business begins to scale, that's when you begin to think about, do I want to hire someone in-house or hire a team in-house to handle this side of my business? And if so, you have to be very calculating there, right? It's not like you can say, oh, I'm just going to hire an intern for social media, or I'm just going to hire a friend or a family member. You have to hire someone who has not only expertise within your industry, but just has expertise managing brand social media, right?
And that's probably not a 17-year-old kid.
No, definitely not. Or the other route is to outsource, right? And there really is no right or wrong answer here, because either you are creating a team in-house to hire this, or you are handling a social media firm that has expertise within your vertical.
The cost is going to be roughly the same. So how do I kind of think about in-house or out-of-house, or which do I do first?
I mean, it really depends. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before about if you are to go the route of outsourcing, choosing a firm that understands your business and understands your business goals, your objectives, and your audience.
Got it. Okay. In my particular vertical, perhaps.
Yes.
If it's B2B or consumer, etc.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Katy, let's now switch gears entirely. I know that you're very passionate about the issues surrounding stress and anxiety and depression for entrepreneurs, something we've talked a lot about. We've blogged and done a lot of interviews. We did one recently with a very prominent VC, Brad Feld, who talked about his own depression very publicly. So maybe to get started, what are some of the big anxieties that you see entrepreneurs face? Are there certain ones that just, you've seen this movie before over and over, and then we could talk a bit about what do you do about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think... there's a lot of pressure that comes with being an entrepreneur, right? You spend a lot of your time worrying mostly about your business, right? Satisfying your employees, satisfying your board, thinking about the financials. And then the rest of your time is really spent about how the rest of the world perceives you. Yeah, your family, your friends, your loved ones, the media, your clients, your customers. It's hard work. The worst part about anxiety is really that you forget to be present. You spend a lot of time thinking about the future, and you spend a lot of time thinking about how certain business scenarios will play out, but you're not mindful of the present. The good news, though, is that there's so many ways to combat anxiety. Something that works for me is meditation. Taking long walks.
Was that as a result of, did you begin doing that as a result of stresses you felt as an entrepreneur, or is this something you've done for a long time?
Yeah, it's definitely as a result of myself becoming an entrepreneur.
And what kind of difference did you see? Because I discuss this with entrepreneurs, especially male entrepreneurs, and they laugh and they're like, whatever. But what, maybe give some tangible impact that you've experienced? Yeah,
I think it's... kind of the physical is not being able to sleep, right? Mm-hmm. Thinking about problems very late at night to the point where it keeps me up.
Right.
Kind of the tightness in the chest kind of feeling, right? Where you think, oh wow, this is one area I need to focus on, but then there's this domino effect of, if I don't deal with this now, then I'm going to have to deal with this later. It's kind of that constant thinking about things that could go wrong.
Right. It's like a fatalistic type of mindset, right?
Right.
And have you found meditation before bed is most effective, or after, or what do you do?
Right before.
Before bed.
Yeah, before I sleep. Helps me sleep, and as I wake up in the morning.
And I'm guessing you don't have the iPhone right next to you on your nightstand.
No, not anymore.
Yeah.
No.
So
I made that mistake when I was running SocialKaty, and never again.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it is something that is just, it's so easy and it's so tempting.
Yeah.
But the other thing I've noticed is that the employees will take the cue from the leader in terms of kind of setting a pace or a cadence. So if you send a lot of emails on weekends, you're going to get a lot of emails on weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, it's tough to develop a culture where you tell people, I want you to have a life, I want you to, take it easy, spend time with your family, but you're barraging them with emails. It's a tough balance. Having the email on the nightstand is not good.
Right, no, definitely not.
What other things have you learned aside from meditation that can help you deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, long walks certainly help, right? I mean, in many ways, meditation, yoga, deep breathing, all of these things allow you to be in a much more calm state of mind. And when you're in that calm state of mind, you can really take a step back and look at your business from that 50,000 foot view, right? Instead of being reactive.
As you built SocialKaty, that was your first significant startup.
Yes.
Who did you look to as a coach or mentor or consigliere to have these tough, honest discussions with?
Yeah, I mean, brilliant question. First and foremost, my husband. He's a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I live with the guy. I love the guy. He's a fantastic mentor for me, to be honest.
Great.
And I'd say kind of the second place where I look to help is other entrepreneurial groups, and I'm very fortunate to be living in a city where there's a ton of support groups here. Not only just for women in tech as well, right? I'm a part of Ms. Tech, I'm a part of Women 2.0, I'm a part of Women Tech Founders, but I also spend a lot of time at 1871 and at the ITA. I go to a lot of events here in town, and so it's really refreshing and it's really lovely to be surrounded by other entrepreneurs who feel exactly the same way I do.
Yeah, you realize you're not crazy because everyone else is just as crazy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, and we're just to be straight, we're definitely not crazy. It's one of those things where when you're in it, you get it.
Yeah.
Other entrepreneurs get it, even though they don't talk about it that much. But I feel like when I go to these meetups and when I go to these events, it's really nice to be able to open up about these things because other people do too. And then we all realize, wow, we're all in the same boat here and we all have the same struggles.
There's one last thing I want to touch on, which is something that I mentioned. I saw you mention in a recent interview, which is one of the key stressors being as the business scales, replacing staff members who perhaps have hit their limit or just, you need, just as a business evolves, different people take it from different stage to stage. How do you manage that anxiety and stress? How do you prevent the entrepreneur from throwing up before they have to fire someone? What have you learned about the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to answer the first part of the question, it's like simply put, as you're growing, you have to plan ahead as a CEO. You have to. You have to add more people. And with adding more people, that comes with putting in place structure and processes. This will allow your company to scale and it'll allow you to run the business more efficiently and more effectively. So, it's not necessarily a matter of replacing people. It's just a matter of putting systems in place that are going to set your business up for success.
As you built SocialKaty, I'm sure that you had some people come and some people go over the course of time.
Oh, yeah.
How do you protect the culture? How do you reassure people that it's okay? That's part of the maturation of a company, is that people are going to change over time, and it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it's always being open and honest and transparent with your employees. I mean, even here at TechWeek, we have weekly meetings with our executive team and monthly meetings with our entire team. And we're very, very open and honest about what's happening in the company and why.
Not always easy to do. If someone wasn't performing, you can't publicly shame them, but you do need people to understand that there is a performance standard. It's a fine line, right?
Exactly. And it is a fine line. And I think that the way that I deal with it is constantly reminding our employees of our company values and our company vision. Here's where we are headed as a company, and this is what we need to do to be able to get here.
Yeah.
So no, never name and shame, but always reiterate and always instill, these are our company values and this is the future of our company.
If you've done a good job as a leader building a culture, people will understand when there is a departure why it probably wasn't a fit. It's almost an unspoken thing in my experience.
It is.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct.
Great. Well, this was a fantastic session, Katy. How can people learn more about TechWeek or get in touch with you if they're interested?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm just Katy at techweek.com, K-T-Y. Techweek.com is a great place to find out where we are in every city. Yeah, and actually, if you're in New York and you're watching TechWeek New York is going on right now.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for making the time, Katy.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.